Spoiler, obviously, the GOAT is back. Frickin' Rickert, the man with the hand of steel, the man with the iron will, the man that makes flamethrowers in the Middle Ages. Rickert has finally returned to grace us with his presence. Bow down to the short king blonde hero that will lead us all into inevitable victory. Rickert is back. So the last time that Rickert and Guts interacted was right before Guts decided to journey towards Elfhelm with Casca way back in the beginning of the Millennium Empire arc. And I had to go back and see just how long it's been. So this is chapter 374. The last chapter that Rickert and Guts were together was chapter 182, which was released in July of 2001. It has literally been 22 years in real time since Rickert and Guts have been in the same place at the same time. That is kind of crazy. Although we don't really get to see them interact in this chapter, it ends on the cliffhanger of Rickert's reveal, but let's talk about what's going on in total here. So the last chapter ended with a bunch of Kushan warriors boarding Roderick's ship and opening the door to the cabin where Guts was, just kind of laying broken and defeated as he's been for the last few chapters here since Casca has been taken away. This chapter kind of shifts our perspective and goes to see the Kushan warriors themselves and them entering the ship, so we're kind of going back in time like a minute or two to kind of see things from a different perspective. I think it's pretty cool how they kind of surround and harpoon the ship, and they basically have a very strategic way as to how they're carrying out this mission. But the one interesting thing to note here is that the Kushan are not killing anybody. They are kind of rounding people up, they're tying them up, they're taking them captive, but no casualties are actually being taken place here, and I think this is a very important thing to note. I also know that a lot of people talked about the Kushans having white pupils, like pure white pupils in the last chapter, and wondering if they're under some kind of spell or if they're demonic or being controlled in some way, and I really don't know how to answer that because of this chapter, I feel like they're not, and it might just be an aesthetic choice, but I could be wrong here. I'm really not sure which way to take this. They could be definitely under some kind of influence or control, although seeing the characters revealed here at the end of the chapter, I don't really think any of them would push some kind of mental control on them, although we do still have Daiba, who is unaccounted for, and he, of course, would be the guy that would be able to do that. Again, I don't know the reason as to why they would want to take some sort of mental control of the Kushan warriors, but it is a strange choice to just kind of see the white people, so there might be something to that, although it might also just be an aesthetic choice. I'm not 100% at this point. But I do like how we get a little moment of Serpico and Isidro here, kind of Serpico reaching for his weapon, realizing he does not have it on him because they were supposed to be protected by a magical barrier, which again might play into the fact of them maybe being kind of under some kind of control. Maybe the only way to combat the magical barrier would be magic itself. I'm not really sure, but regardless, it is nice to see Serpico go to kind of fight once more because we haven't seen him do anything in a really long time, at least as far as like his physicality goes, and we know that he is like one of the strongest, most strategic warriors that is actually on the ship. But if you don't have a weapon, well, you probably can't take down like 12 guys with swords. So he does a little maneuvering, kind of going to the lower decks, like how it shows off his physicality and his acrobatic skills, because again, we haven't seen that in a while, and I know it's not much, but it just is kind of cool to see Serpico do something. And in the next couple of panels, like I said, we see the same thing happening here. The Kushan are kind of rounding up the crew and backing them into a corner. We do see them sword fighting, but again, no kills, no casualties. We don't see anybody getting stabbed, nobody getting sliced. It pretty much is them trying to subdue the ship's crew and Roderick and everybody, but not necessarily trying to kill them. One funny thing here is seeing Azan and two other crew members just kind of sitting around drinking together, and the Kushan show up, and he basically says like, oh, we were just discussing who's going to take watch next, kind of like they're getting in trouble for like not keeping watch, which is really funny because Azan was one of those characters that was kind of the most honorific, back in the day, back in the Conviction arc, and now he's kind of like turned into a bumbling drunk because of the things that have happened. I don't know. I know that it might be a little bit of a disservice maybe to the character, but I think it's kind of funny. And since he was never really a main character to begin with, I don't really mind the transition too much. I thought this moment was kind of funny. But he, of course, knows who is in the cabin next door, which is Guts. And he is worried about what is going to happen when the doors open, just as we were all curious at the end of the last chapter. Now, I know some people here might be disappointed by what happens here because a lot of people were expecting Guts to go into rage mode, go into a berserker mode, have the Beast of Darkness take over, and for him to just kill a shit ton of people. And as much as I love seeing Guts kill a shit ton of people, you have to understand, at least I think, what the story is trying to say here, and that's not necessarily where Guts is going to be the best suited at this moment, right? Now, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I think it still might in the next chapter, although I think it's something that we as the audience should be fearful of and not necessarily root for because of what is going on with Guts' psychological state. This is the most broken Guts has ever been, and if he does succumb to that Beast of Darkness inside of him once more, it might be the point of no return, which might be a very important factor as to why we see Rickert here, because it is going to be a reminder of something that he still has, something that he can still hold on to, something to retain his humanity. Because when the Kushan open the door and they see this giant motherfucking sword there, they start to try to push it away, and you see Guts very tired, very weak, very out of it. He's sort of like in and out of consciousness right now, kind of slowly reaching for the sword, and everyone is kind of cautious about it, but notice how it's a slow, kind of painful reach for it. It's sort of like an exhausting reach for it. It's sort of like, how many more fucking times am I going to have to do this? Like, how long is this going to last? How long do I have to keep fighting? I sense this pain from it, and seeing Guts sort of reach for the sword like this, it's not like a proud moment. I'm not like, oh yeah, Guts, go get the sword, kill them. I'm kind of just like, God damn it. Like, I have to do this again. Like, there is no stop to this pain, and it hurts. It hurts me to read, like, for the character. And I know a lot of people just want, like, crazy action sequences, and I know that we're going to get those in the future. Don't worry. But seeing this moment, I'm more in line with, like, the pain of Guts' character right now, because it's just sort of like another moment of Jesus Christ. Like, just think about it. Like, he just had to deal with the falling of Elfhelm. He just had to deal with seeing Griffith again. He just had to deal with seeing Casca get taken away. He's laying here just sort of broken, defeated, depressed, dealing with the beast inside of him that he hasn't unleashed in quite some time. And it's just like another thing, like, dear fucking God, like, do I have to do this, really? And the next page, I think, is the symbolism of this, where you see the Kushan kind of telling them to wrap Guts up in chains because they don't want him getting loose or getting the sword or anything. And so you see the character holding the chains over Guts, and then it immediately cuts to this symbolic representation of the beast breaking out of its chains. So as we're seeing the physical, literal chains being put on Guts, we have the mental chains that are slowly being broken. And the Beast of Darkness has been represented and depicted by being wrapped in chains for quite some time, and those chains are kind of steadily breaking. But what's interesting is that we're not seeing the physicality of that on the outside. This is all mental, which again, I think is why Guts is reaching for the sword so slowly, because it's not about his physicality right now. It's not about his physical body. It's about his mind just being like, fuck. It's just sort of like, do I have to do this? Like, is there no recourse? Is there no other choice? It's just like the chain breaks and breaks and breaks and breaks one at a time as the actual literal physical chains are being wrapped around him. And it's some beautiful symbolism, honestly. Then we get some conversation of the other ship crew as they're being rounded up and tied up. And I love that Roderick, of course, the man, the Chad he is, the absolutely honorable, noble man. Back when righteousness and chivalry was real, he tells them to let the women and children go because that's just the kind of man he is. Love my boy Roderick, man. No Roderick slander in this chat, man. No, I don't want any Roderick slander in the comment section. Roderick is the fucking badass. And you know what? Ever since Berserk returned with Studio Gaga and Koji Mori taking over, they have paid specific mind to let us know that Roderick is a motherfucking Chad, and I love them for that. But the one interesting thing about their conversation to me is Roderick is talking to Magnifico and his first mate, and I kind of forgot how much Roderick knew about what was going on in the outside world, because they start talking about, who these people are, what's going on. They don't speak the same language. Roderick is figuring out that they're Kushan, and they have this little line that says the Kushan was kind of invading Midland, which is true. The Kushan were invading Vertanis as they were leaving. When they got on Roderick's ship for the first time, that's when, all the the Daka and the big, Pashaka and everything was attacking, the demonic tigers, like everything that Roderick found out, like, oh, hey, demonic shit is real at that moment, and they helped Guts escape. All that was happening, and I think that they were very aware that it was coming from the Kushan Empire. However, when they got to Elfhelm, I could have sworn that Guts knew that, Griffith had sort of like risen up and, built his kingdom kind of out there in the world. So I had imagined like everybody else knew that too, but perhaps that's not true. So perhaps Roderick didn't actually know this. This is one thing that I actually have foggier memories on. I guess I have to go back and read the chapter when they're all at Elfhelm kind of sitting around talking about it, because I could have sworn they all knew about Griffith's kingdom at this point. But Roderick seems to think and theorize that they have conquered Midland, and now they're sort of expanding their territory and expanding their reach to other places because they never expected to run into the Kushan here in the middle of the ocean. He also shows that they have a particular view of the Kushan, and look, I mean, I can understand from a distant country that they don't really understand, that has a lot of strange tools and technologies and weird ways that they do things that, you might just, you might call them savages, because they're different. But that's what Roderick expects. He expects them to be savages. He expects them to kill them immediately, but he is noticing that something is weird, something is off, because they should have been able to kill everybody here. They took them by surprise. They have a ton of warriors, but everybody is still alive. And so he's thinking that something very, very strange is going on and that they might have some kind of other purpose. And then the last 2 pages, we get the biggest setup and reveals of what we are going to see coming forward, because we see that the whole crew has been kind of gathered together. We see that even Serpico and Isidro have been caught. Puck is just kind of chilling there. He could probably like fly around if he wanted to, but he's with the boys, man. It's like they got caught. He's going to stick with them. So I appreciate that. But then from a foggy, distant shot, we see that Salat and the Bakiraka are here. So we know these are part of the Kushan that he was talking about taking Rickert back to in the mountains, when they left Falconia. So that is who these people are, confirmed. And then we see Guts walking, which I just imagine it's him standing up, wrapped in the chains, just kind of slowly going through the motions, not even really even paying attention to what's going on around him, just sort of like delirious in a daze, walking forward as his sanity begins to break more and more. He could be walking towards his sword, sort of like a zombie at this point, just kind of like going through the motions, like I said, walking towards it, because you see the Kushan in the final panel just sort of holding onto the chains, like trying to keep this guy together, trying to keep him from escaping. And we got like 5 or 6 guys here that are like holding these chains, and I imagine Guts is just sort of like zombie walking towards his sword. But in the middle of all of them, dressed out and decked in the finest Kushan wardrobe, my motherfucking man, Rickert. We can tell just from his hair, just from his eyes, Rickert is here. And Rickert recognizes Guts in this final panel, this shot of him looking over. He knows exactly what he's seeing. He might be a little dumbfounded by what he's seeing, because Guts has changed a lot since they last saw each other, but Rickert's changed a lot too, man. And Rickert is here leading the charge, I hope, with these Kushan warriors along with Salat. And this was a great reveal, man. You could say, overall the chapter was pretty much predictable, but I think you need to give the characters a chance to understand what's going on. It's not always just about the audience. Like, we have to tell a story here, and the characters have to realize, oh, we're being boarded by warriors. Oh, they're Kushan. Oh, what is going on? They're not killing us. They're capturing us. What is happening? How can the Kushan expand their reach this far? These are all very important story notes that maybe I understand waiting months and months for a chapter can feel a little bit disappointing, but these are things that have to happen to the characters for them to have an idea of what's going on and what's going to happen next. But I gotta say that reveal, that final shot, that money shot of Rickert at the very end of the chapter, that sold it for me. Dude, that made me hype. And you know what? I'm sorry. Call me a fanboy. Call me whatever you want. But seeing Rickert once again after so long, and just the mere fact that Rickert and Guts are in the same place, in the same location, and if there's anything that can pull back Guts from the brink at this point, it's going to be Rickert. Rickert is this thing from Guts' past. It's the thing from the Band of the Hawk days, but it's the only thing from those days that has not been corrupted, that can still give hope, that can be his partner in crime. And I always said, when the raid on Falconia finally happens, when we have our big final climactic battle, Guts' side is going to need help. They're going to need an army. They're going to need forces. We have all of these Kushan warriors now. This is a perfect setup for things to come. Griffith has an army. Guts is going to need an army, and the Kushan already have a built-in motivation for wanting to take down Falconia because of what happened between the War of the Kushan and with Griffith. You have the magical element that could be at play here with Daiba. You have Salat returning once again, and he's going to recognize him too. I also don't think that anybody here in the group is going to recognize Salat and Ricker except for Puck. And this is going to be a great way to relay information because Ricker is going to be able to tell Guts exactly what Falconia is like, even give him the layout, and Guts is going to be able to tell Ricker what happened with Casca, give them some hope that she's been healed, and everything that they went through this entire time. The combination of these two groups is exactly what we needed, and it's exactly where the story needed to go, and I'm excited for it moving forward. Now, with Guts dealing with the Beast of Darkness, escaping and everything, I do still think that there is a potential Guts is going to break out here and cause some havoc, but I think that Ricker will be the guy to kind of quell that and help push us forward into the next stage of Berserk. Although what I still want is I do want a full chapter at some point with Guts dealing with the Beast inside of his mind and moving on to that next stage of how he handles this and how he manages it to help benefit him rather than always being a victim of it. Because ultimately, I think that that's one of the core themes of Berserk. It's dealing with your pain, dealing with your trauma, not letting it destroy you completely, not letting it control you, but finding a way to not only manage it, overcome it, but use it in a way that can benefit you. Rage can be utilized in a positive way. Pain can give motivation in a positive way. Retaining your humanity is a very, very important thing. And I think that that's ultimately what this story is kind of all about. Understanding and recognizing that we all have darkness in us, and the more pain that we go through in life, the stronger that darkness becomes, but we can still be stronger than it, and we don't have to give into it just because it wants us to. But enough preaching. Rickert's back, and I want to see him slap some shit. Anyways, guys, tell me what you thought about this chapter. Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? Let me know what you think about it down below in the comments. Where do you see the story going from here? I don't know if we're going to get a chapter next month. We'll probably know in about a week or so. I would hope that we get at least one more by the end of the year, but we'll see what happens. Regardless, if I gotta wait, I will wait, and we will just take it one chapter at a time. Anyways, guys, as always, I thank you for watching this video, man. I do appreciate it. Please give it a like and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. I'll really, really appreciate it if you did so. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and consider doing that. And if you want to, check out some of my other videos, because I make a lot of videos that are not Berserk related that I would love for you guys to check out if you were curious, if you're interested. I do a lot of anime, manga reviews, movie reviews, live streams, a bunch of stuff. So maybe if you kind of browse through, you'll find something you like. But beyond that, guys, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next time.